Hey everyone, it's Mr. Gerald Lord. Normally I do this show by myself, but in this installment I've got a special guest on the show today. Please welcome a good friend of mine, Mr. Crooklyn Banks. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing alright. Anyways, this show's a little different. We're going to be asking some questions to each other, mainly because we just wanted you guys to get to know the people behind the show. And Crooklyn, you can ask me questions first. That's fine with you?
Alright, I'll be doing that. Thank you.
Okay.
Alright, another point of view. That's the name for your show. How'd you come up with that name?
Well, I remember when I wanted to do an internet show, or at least start doing videos on YouTube or something, I figured, well, if I did an internet show and I tried to come up with a creative name, I was like, yeah, I mean, most of them are really taken. So one of my friends told me, if you do an internet show, all you're really going to be doing is throwing a message in a bottle out into an ocean of messages in a bottle. And I said, that's right, I'm really just putting my point of view on, basically, into an ocean of everyone else's point of view. So I said, well, why don't I just call my show Another Point of View? And that's kind of just the short story of how I came up with the name.
Why'd you start the show?
I just really wanted to get my opinions out there. I mean, I saw a bunch of people on YouTube or just social media or whatnot, and they're giving their opinion, so I said, I have an opinion, let me give mine.
Why audio?
I think video and audio takes away from the message you're trying to give. People start judging you based on your looks or your appearance, and then it could either discredit or make people listen to you more. So I was like, let's just make it so that people can't say they're viewing it just for the way I look, but for what I'm saying.
How do you choose what to discuss?
And it's really whatever catches my eye. The crocodile story, for example, was just me. I read the story and I said, damn, this is actually pretty good. I really want to talk about this. Same with a lot of other stuff. Sometimes if there's nothing much going on, I'll just stick with something that I feel people should know about. And that's pretty much it.
Is there any topic you'd avoid discussing?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, the topic I kind of avoid discussing the most is politics in terms of elections that are occurring. And I mainly just avoid discussing it because, I mean, unless there's something really drastic going on, politics is really murky and everybody's just throwing mud and whatnot. Oftentimes it's name calling, especially with elections, everybody gets heated. And there's plenty of people giving their point of view on that as it is. I don't really think I need to add mine on that one.
Usually end your shows with the segment called Here's a Recommendation. Why is it always books? Why not other things?
I kind of touched on this in installment 2, sort of, where it was about the literacy rate and how a certain percentage of United States specifically, the illiteracy rate's pretty high. And I thought to myself, people don't read books as much as they used to, or if they do, they don't give it as much time. And I said, well, why don't I change that? And there are certain books that I like that I feel people should really check out. So I said, well, let's give them a recommendation. Maybe they'll check it out, maybe they won't. I try to give a fair synopsis of it, tell them what to expect without spoiling too much. And I think that's pretty good.
Do you read them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't recommend a book that I haven't read, per se, or I'm not familiar with, definitely. I mean, I know that a lot of talk shows do the whole book thing where they recommend a book or they recommend a movie or something, and they'll say that they've read it sometimes and maybe they haven't. I don't want to be like that, so to speak. I don't have sponsors, so if I recommend a book, I'm not recommending it because somebody's paying me to do it either. This is just something that I liked, and I thought people should check it out.
You have 5 segments on your show. Which one of those is your favorite?
This one's actually kind of hard. I mean, 2 of them I haven't really done that many segments on yet. But if I had to say what my favorite is, I'd have to say it's Less Talk Internet, just because that one's more of my opinion, and I'm a bit more myself when I'm doing it.
How long do you plan on running the show?
As long as it stays remotely enjoyable for me, I guess.
Alright, sounds good.
Alright. Alright, so my turn. So, I imagine you're fairly familiar with the show. So I was going to ask, what's your favorite of the 5 segments so far?
Probably the What's Happening Now series. I do like my news, usually very well informed, usually coming after most of the information has been collected and stored. So it is probably my favorite segment.
Alright. Which of the other 4 segments do you like the least?
Probably the Let's Talk Internet. Mostly because I don't really follow what happens on the internet or the memes, or usually I'm aware of it when they become irrelevant. So usually I don't understand what you're talking about with the segment most of the time.
About the Let's Talk Internet segment. But I'm just going to throw some topics that I've already discussed and tell me what you think about these, okay? So, game raging.
Usually when I play video games, I don't really like going online, and when I do, it's usually not a pleasant experience. So usually when people leave the game, it actually makes it a lot more enjoyable for me. So I'm actually all for it.
Oh, you're all for game raging?
Yes.
Okay. Text speak.
Usually I don't really text that often, and when I do, it's in full, complete English. So if someone wants to shorten it down, I usually either don't text that person again, mostly because I don't know what most of the text speak is, other than, the usual LOL. So if someone does want to use me in text speak, that's basically them telling me to not text them again, so I'm all for that as well.
Okay. Overly political comments in articles that they have nothing to do with.
Usually, they tell you the 3 things you never talk about is politics, sports, and religion, which is why I always focus on talking about all 3. So if someone wants to just yell out their political affiliation in a comment, that just means that I know where they're coming from. So if they do speak again, I know what side of the issue that they're coming for. So I'm all for that as well.
Okay. Hacking.
Computer hacking is usually, I'm not really familiar with it. I understand that Hollywood's version of hacking isn't all that realistic, and I actually sort of was a victim of identity theft, so I'm not going to say that I'm all for that like the previous, but I will say that I do endorse, I believe it is white hat hacking, where it's usually done for the good, and most of the time, I'm not really familiar with hacking besides Edward Snowden, so I can't really say I'm very well informed to really give an educated opinion on it.
Okay. Online comics.
Online comics are something that I'm very well aware of, as much as I hate that I am aware of it, and just like most YouTube videos or memes or whatever on the internet, there's far too much of it. And even if there are good segments of online comics, I usually just try to avoid them, mostly because I am very well versed in online comics and I do not like them. So even if there are good ones, I just don't care.
Okay. Out of all the installments, so far we've done 8 episodes of Another Point of View. Which do you like the most, and why?
I would probably say the first episode, mostly because the beginning was the Syrian crisis, and as at the time I was just getting into watching the news again, I sort of took a very large break where I just tried to stay uninformed, or rather, I just didn't care about what was happening in the news. But as I switched majors to history, I sort of was forced into having a view historically, or rather, a view on current events and how to relate them to history. So when you came out with the whole take on the Syrian civil war, I sort of looked at it. I sort of did my research, and courtesy of what you said in the video, I sort of understood the sides and what was happening, as well as the links that you provided. It sort of helped me to understand a clear picture. So now, a couple of weeks later, I actually understand the crisis. I'm able to discuss it with people who are uninformed of the crisis, and I get to beat it over the head over the knowledge that I have with it.
Oh, wow. Okay. which installment did you like the least?
Would probably have to say the previous episode, mostly because of the whole hacking angle and the I believe it was the Nigerian terrorist, where it sort of gotten to the point where whenever someone mentions terrorism, it's just a whole, oh, okay, I'm just don't want to hear this. So it's just when you brought up, I believe, Boko Haram and the whole campaign about bringing back the girls, it was just, oh yeah, I'm sort of done hearing about terrorism. I just want to take a break from terrorism. I just really wish the news would just focus on the crazy Republicans and Obama's supposedly unconstitutional immigration bill.
Yeah, to be honest, just to add into that, yeah, I've kind of been phoning it in with the last few. I'm actually trying to not talk about terrorists anymore. I really hate them. It's just they're really hard to avoid on the news when I'm looking at it. But I'll try to avoid that. If you did do the show, do you think you'd lean more towards providing opinions or facts, or would you try to aim for some sort of balance?
I guess it would be the balance, mostly be by providing a opinion and just supporting it with facts.
Okay. Were there any points or stories I did on the show that you disagreed with my point of view?
I believe it was probably with the whole Syrian crisis, which a lot has changed in the first episode, where sort of push for rather the Assad government and the Free Syrian Army. My opinion would after I became well aware of the crisis was just that the United States should probably actually be more assertive with their all anti-Assad policies, and rather than just saying Assad's a bad guy and actually do something about it. But considering how ISIS has very much forced the issue, can't really say that there are any real criticisms of it, considering how much it's changed. Other than that, maybe the crocodile story, since not that I really would, is there anything disagreement with. I don't know, I guess I sort of got a little annoyed at the segment, mostly because I did kind of know that the crocodile would come, or that was a crocodile, and that the man would murder the crocodile, obviously, because he was retelling his story. And I can't really think of anything else.
Alright. If you could rename the show, what would you rename it? Or would you rename it at all?
Don't really know if I would necessarily rename it. Another point of view, I don't know if I would agree with the title or not. It does sort of seem a bit misleading, because then again, I don't really know what the other views are on topics, but it doesn't really seem you're presenting another point of it. Then again, for all I know, you are. I usually don't listen to various opinions on topics. I usually just read the basic facts for my own and then just assume that I'm right.
Last question. If you could suggest one thing to change about the show, what would you suggest?
I would probably suggest possibly cutting out the recommendations. Personally, I have enough books that have been recommended to me to read, so having you just dump more books is just telling me that screw it, I'm just going to claim I read this and just read the summary on Wikipedia, which actually does help.
Yeah, I do.
Or wait for the movie.
Wait for the movie. Yeah, that's actually a good point. I have used Wikipedia before as a source. You probably noticed. Most viewers could probably tell. But essentially, yeah, I could see where you're coming from. All right, let's sign off. You can take this one, Crooklyn.
Goodbye.